Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Keystone Conversations. As we gather today for our summit on global regeneration, we want to acknowledge that today is also Truth and Reconciliation Day in Canada, a day of reflection and awareness. As we explore pathways for global regeneration, it's important to recognize the invaluable wisdom Indigenous cultures bring to regenerative practices. We are committed to moving forward with understanding and respect for all cultures and histories. Thank you. Over the next month, we are hosting a series of rare conversations between Verge Co-Founder Rob Avis and a curated team of thought leaders, starting with Justin Rhodes, who is joining us today. Hello, everyone. My name is Carmen Lamoureux, and I'll be your moderator for Keystone Conversations. In addition to today's session with Justin Rhodes, Rob will also host Keystone Conversations in October with Dan Halsey on October 12th and Finian Makepeace on October 25th. Dan is a co-founder and head of design and education at United Designers International, and Finian is a co-founder of Kiss the Ground, the popular social documentary and nonprofit organization. Before I introduce our host, I would like to briefly cover some etiquette for today's event. First, although you will be muted throughout our session, you can still connect with us whether you're joining us via Zoom or watching live on YouTube. We'll do our best to respond to as many comments as questions as we can during the Q&A, and you'll be able to ask those questions via the Google Forms we'll be posting regularly in the chats. We do ask that you please do your best to stay on topic. We also encourage you to keep your cameras on, as it invites you to be an active participant in the session conversation. Be assured that we won't be sharing anyone's image from the audience publicly on screen, as only the presenters will be able to see your video. Please take a moment now to let us know where you're from using the chat. We'd also love to hear how permaculture and/or regenerative practices have impacted your life. And stay tuned at the end of our session today, because we'll be giving you, the audience, a chance to win a spot in our upcoming permaculture design course, which kicks off on November 14th. Our host for the Keystone Conversations series is Rob Avis, co-founder of Verge Permaculture, a global award-winning education academy described by Jeff Lawton as one of North America's premier permaculture design and education companies. Rob is a leading voice in the land regeneration movement. He's combined his background in engineering with a passion to develop a clear process for regenerative land design and management. This gives Rob unique insights into the complexity of a land's ecosystem, making it possible for him to innovatively create resilient, anti-fragile supply chains of water, energy, and food. Rob is a colleague and a good friend, so without further ado, please welcome Rob Avis. Hey, Rob, how's it going? It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. So excited for this conversation today.
So, Rob, you're about to welcome Justin Rhodes to our first ever Keystone Conversation session. But before you do, could you please give us a little background about our other guests, Finian and Dan, who will be joining us in October?
Totally. I'm not sure if folks here have watched Kiss the Ground and his new film that's coming out here right away, Common Ground, but Finian has really worked hard to push the needle in getting folks to understand the state of the world that we find ourselves in, but also not just creating this doom and gloom kind of scenario with the videos that or the documentaries that he's created, but also showing that there's actually a lot of hope. And Dan's a colleague and definitely one of the best in the space, has found himself doing regeneration projects all over Earth. You can check his website out at United Designers, and they've got so many amazing projects, and a couple of our students actually work with him, which is really exciting to watch how they are approaching the regenerative space. So stay tuned to those conversations. I think everybody's going to learn a ton.
Thanks, Rob. We're pretty stoked about today's special guest as well, Justin Rhodes. Can you tell us a little bit about his background?
Well, before I do, I have to say that it's been amazing to work with you as well, Carmen. You've definitely moved the needle yourself in Calgary, Alberta, even Western Canada. So excited to be surrounded by so many great colleagues. So Justin Rhodes is, just a sec here, too many things going on here. So first, let's talk a little bit about these guys. Sorry about that, folks. Justin is a colleague, and I've watched him and his career over almost, he's actually been following a similar trajectory as me over the last 10 to 15 years. And he's a popular author of The Rooted Life, an amazing book. Actually, I've got it right here right now. And if you don't have a copy of that, I highly recommend getting it. And it's all about growing your own food. No pun intended, but he's one of the most knowledgeable permaculture experts in the field. Justin is a respected permaculturist and film producer who teaches folks how to work with nature to live more abundantly. He has a new TV series called Elevated, and I'll let Justin tell you all about that project. I'm sure he's going to continue to move the needle in that space as he has been doing for the last 10 years.
That's awesome. I'm excited about today's session. So as everyone here knows, we also know a little bit about permaculture and have taught thousands of students through the Verge Academy for over 15 years. Our next PDC starts on November 14th and promises to be the best one yet. So one thing I love about working with Verge is we're always heavily invested in growing and evolving every day so that we can bring our students the most current information possible. So Rob, what do you think about our newest PDC? How is it different?
Well, actually, that's a great question, Carmen. Every PDC is different. So we've been teaching together for a long time now, and I don't think any one of the courses that you and I have ever taught has been the same. So the thing that changes are the people. And because our courses are live, we are always innovating, answering different questions, and the designs that come out of these courses are absolutely unbelievable. So watching how people apply the information in different contexts on different pieces of land with different situations. And then, every course we have slightly different instructors. And so the flavor changes a little bit. And this is going to be no different this year. I'm excited to see a new cohort of students through the Academy. And, it's amazing that we've broken 5,000 students in the last 15 years. And I'm hoping that we're going to start accelerating and see 5,000 students every year. But another great cohort coming up here right away.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Well, okay. On that note, Rob, I'm going to hand off the very first Keystone Conversations to you, my friend. Have fun.
Thanks so much, Carmen. So here's the moment you guys have all been waiting for. I'm pleased to welcome our very first guest on Keystone Conversations, Justin Rhodes. If you're able to, Justin, you can take your unmute yourself and show your video.
Oh, okay. Okay, working on that. Can you hear me yet?
Yeah, you bet, bud. Coming in loud.
Okay. Okay, good. What I said was thank you, and good to talk with you today. It's been a long time no see.
Yeah, man, it's been a while. And I was just kind of thinking about this conversation this morning, and I know you've got some exciting projects you're going to talk to us about. You've been busy since our first conversation. I can remember that first conversation that we had. Was it 12 years ago, maybe 10 years ago? I don't know.
I mean, it was so long ago. I feel like it was fresh off of my training at Jeff Lawton's, and I don't even know. YouTube. I've kind of gotten my traction on YouTube, and have become well known through that. But it was even before that, that was 7 years ago.
Well, and then I'll refresh your memory because I remember like it was yesterday. So
okay,
we were talking on the phone, and you had told me that your aspirations to have an impact on the world and show people all these amazing skills that you had learned, and that you were literally like days, you were like within days of running out of money, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden a signal came. And you got a check from YouTube, which was a signal that people were actually engaging with your content. You were having an impact, and that you were going to continue to be able to kind of go on this mission of yours. It was a really impactful story. It was one of the stories that I tell a lot of people that, Mollison used to say that, you're doing the right thing when the resources start pooling around you. And it's a perfect example of that, of you put your heart into this. You were going as hard as you could, trying to have a family, trying to change the world at the same time, and not sure how it was all going to come together. And then this random check shows up in your mailbox.
I know, man. It's so cool that because most of the time people are talking to me for these kinds of things, after all that, we're reflecting back on it, but you and I had conversation before the success.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And it gives me chill bumps, you here telling me that. Yeah, because it was kind of like, and what one thing you said there made me think, you can measure, you've gotten 5,000 students come through. So, that brings in revenue, that brings in students and people you can influence, but that is telling of how impactful you've been and how valuable the information is. So yeah, that is a good marker. I think I'm glad you said that, because that is a good marker for people. Am I on the right track or not? Just am I influencing people and growing in some way?
One of the best things, like I've watched you from afar, probably sometimes I feel like I'm spying on you. And I guess that's a common thing when you're on YouTube, because you kind of get a view into people's lives, but
Yeah.
it's a one directional thing unless you're getting out into community events. But you've done a really good job of kind of showing the ups and downs. Like it's easy on YouTube to show this polished, perception of perfection, but
Yeah.
your son's been in the hospital. You guys have, gone through, brought new children into the world. You've had complete failures and complete successes, win, lose, or draw. You've kind of brought the world along with what it means to live a permaculture life on a homestead. I'm curious what the scariest, but also the most exciting or happiest moments have been in those years that you've been producing this content and showing the world what this looks like.
At that, you're just nailing it, because this is what I wanted to tell you after you talking there, but you're asking me that very question. So I would say, I'm fresh off of Jeff Lawton's permaculture design course in Australia. We chucked it all. We were out of money. We put our tax return. At that time we made so little money. We actually got money back from taxes. We put it all to go, just this leap of faith, go and learn permaculture at Jeff's across the world. I mean, if you dug a hole from here to from North Carolina through the center of the earth, you don't come out at China. You actually come out on the coast of Australia. So it's about as far as I could go. So that was a very scary moment, because we had no money and no even solid plan. We just knew somewhere in there we thought that permaculture would have an answer. But one of the moments there that you spoke to there about our vulnerability online came because we're come off of this court with Jeff Lawton, and at the time all the other homesteading channels on YouTube, like Wrangler Star, Dirt Patch Heaven, Appalachian, I forget the rest of their name, but they were very teachy and instructional, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a total style. I'm not bashing on that style. It's great. But I had stumbled across this what you call family vlogs, and this whole other arena had nothing to do with homesteading. Some dude's video went viral because he found out that his wife was pregnant. He snuck a pea stick in there, and it was the man getting to reveal to the wife that they're pregnant. So that's different, and that went viral. And my wife started following them, and they put out these daily shows on their own life. And I'm like, what is this? Eventually it felt like he was just walking around with a phone filming himself, but eventually I learned that was a thing. And we took this, we were in this space of trying to figure out how, we'd been back from Jess, were we going to be like a one-on-one permaculture designer? We kind of, put that to the side and knew that wasn't for us, but we still wanted to be in this movement. And I was having to slow down from my market farm because of Lyme disease, and I still wanted to be in this movement. So we knew then, long story short, we figured out we wanted to make content, and as the part of making a living in this manner and being in this field. And so we said, oh, I was writing blogs and we were doing well. I was learning how to make money through creating blog content. I was listening to the business guy, Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, while I'm doing dishes, while I'm driving. So I was consuming this business and marketing stuff as well as the permaculture and farming stuff. And we stumbled across this vlog, and we're like, so in the content creation space that I'm in, the basic idea is you create free content and you put it on YouTube or podcasts or email newsletters or Instagram or wherever, YouTube Shorts or TikTok. And but though eventually you learn your audience and you discover a need and you create something to service that need, and you trade dollar bills for information or training or whatever. And so I said, Rebekah, we ought to try vlogging. Rebekah's my wife. So, but you got to remember, I had also at that time just put out this movie called Permaculture Chickens. It was our first product. And it was if you watch it now, it's totally different than my performances now. I'm like, just nervous, straight-laced, serious as a heart attack. And it's great information. I still promote it. It's still one of our number one selling things. And I'm proud of it. Not so much the performance, but the information is spot on. So we're good. So we started daily vlogging, and then we're like, okay, we're shooting a film about our day, but things go wrong. And so we were forced to show that. There was one time this chicken wasn't going out of the coop like everybody else. And we're like, and it was and we, talked to Mr. Google Pants. We tried to figure out what this is. Okay, we think this thing's egg bound. We thought we felt something in there. Oh, what do we got to do for egg bound? Oh, you got to give it like an olive oil bath, this and that. No, okay, we're not going there. That's not our style. We're gonna put this chicken out of our misery. I mean, it's kind of getting old anyway. Let's just harvest this chicken. And I had to make that decision and open it up. Long story short, I figured out that that chicken was just really fat. And so here I was struggling with this, like, well, why did the chicken get so fat? Why didn't I know it was egg bound? Here it is. I was already at the time the apron wearing permaculture chicken ninja master. Mistakes like this shouldn't happen. I already been homesteading 10 years. I'm supposed to be the expert. So I upload this video and I had to go take a nap because it's just the vulnerability, it just felt cringe. And I couldn't handle it. I went and took a nap. But when I got up from that nap, I went to check the comments and everybody's like, oh, thank you for showing this. Stuff like this happens to me and it makes me feel like I can do it and this and that. So instead of, I thought it was going to debunk me from being this expert, but it actually lifted it up. And so now hopefully that's relieving in a way, but still we have to embrace that vulnerability at least every once a week, if not more. But I do realize that people benefit from that greatly. Learning from this, and it's not this after the fact thing. We're learning in real time. So I might be making a mistake now that even then, like, I don't even know to correct it at the end of the video. I might have to come back in a couple of weeks or as time tells, did it work? And just be honest and open with people.
So you're actually human.
Yeah. And people like that.
Yeah, totally.
Actually, if anybody's here wanting to create content and go this route, which I don't see why, I think everybody in this room should consider that. It never has the opportunity been so ripe to reach so many people in an affordable way. Everybody has one of these nowadays. That means you have the world's information at your fingertips, and you have all the production you could ever imagine. And so, this production is almost better than, I wish I have two cameras on me right now, is sometimes better than that other production because it's relatable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jordan Peterson said that YouTube and like the way that information is coming out as a Gutenberg press moment. And like everything in our society right now, it's a double-edged sword, that it can be used for good or bad. But thanks for sharing that message. I think it's so inspiring that somebody's willing to be honest with their audience. You guys have kind of shared win, lose, or draw, and like you said, we have the information at our fingertips. And in spite of the insanity of the world right now, and where industrial agricultural systems are going, and the condition of our food, permaculture does give us hope. It gives us tools and techniques and processes and a community of people to actually create this incredible change. And you're the tip of the spear when it comes to helping people to see what this life actually looks like. So without further ado, I'm going to let you take it away on your presentation, and then we'll join up again at the end there and have a bit of a chat and open it up for Q&A for our audience. Thanks, Justin.
Yes. You still want me to go 45 minutes, 30 minutes? What do you want me to do?
Yeah. 45 sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go for it. So I've been training for this talk for 15 years now, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears for homesteading. It's always been my heart to be a practical permaculture homesteader, because what's the homestead really gonna do for you? What's the permaculture really gonna do for you if it's not practical and you don't get results? And oftentimes we can get caught up in this lofty ideas and desires and unicorns farting rainbows and this idea of frolicking on the farm. But then if we don't ever put anything into action, and we can have all these ideas and we can hear what somebody said on a YouTube video or in some course, and we can criticize others for not living up to that. But until we've hit the ground and experience those blood, sweat, and tears, we really have nothing to speak to. So we really got to make this practical. And I'm going to give you some tips. I've jotted down 7 tips from my experience, how we can make this practical, meaning rewarding in a real everyday life. Like I just came over here from a lunch, and we had just gone, it's rare, but we went to a restaurant. We were celebrating something as a family, and they had this bacon chicken soup. And we're like, oh, we can do that. We can do that at home. And I just came from a lunch with our homegrown bacon, our homegrown chicken, cooked in meat stock. My wife's gathering the chicken skins and making a sauce out of it. And it was absolutely amazing. And I'm to the point where I actually have to take a moment and say, hey, wait a minute, you need to really recognize that. I'm glad I'm in this show because it's just our everyday life now. But now I'm reminded, no, that's something. And that's very special. You grew 95% of what was in that. We didn't grow the celery. So anyway, I'm going to give you some tips. We're going to talk about why I permaculture. You're going to learn some things from that entertaining story. We're going to talk about knowing your why. We're going to talk about what happened with COVID in 2020 and the influx of people that are probably here, but also address, where'd everybody go from that? Because we're getting a lot of people falling away. We're getting a lot of COVID gardens, I call them, these abandoned gardens, because things have gone back to normal. I'm going to talk about regrets. So many times people ask me, what are your regrets? What would you do different? I'm going to give you real practical intro to permaculture, like what I found to be 80% of my results with permaculture, with like 20% of the effort. So really just 3 things I've learned from permaculture have given me 80% of the results in my life, of my bacon and chicken soup that I had for lunch with my family. And by the way, we're eating from the farm 3 times a day with my family. We forget family meal night once a week. Forget dinner every day as a family. We have every single meal together as a family. So one thing I'm going to challenge you to, you're here, you've questioned a norm, you're in permaculture, you're a weirdo, you're a freak. Embrace that. It's okay. It doesn't mean we're wrong. Just because you're crazy does not mean you're wrong. Okay. And I'll talk about, lastly, one of the greatest things permaculture's ever did to me is say, how do we turn a problem into a solution? And like Rob, you mentioned there, there's good and bad in this technology. There's good and bad in every single thing. Everything has a blessing and a curse. Technology is no different than a tree. There's going to be a blessing and a curse in that tree. That tree can shade you, it can warm you, it can build your house, but it can kill you. All right. If you were to eat something and it was poisonous, if it were to fall on you, it can destroy you. Even something as beautiful and as holy as the tree. So, why permaculture came to me, and it probably came to many of you, as Jeff taught me as his class. He's like, many people come to permaculture school, they fall off the precipice. You've hit some sort of problem. For me, it was, and this is good I'm talking to you about it now, because I'm hurting today. I am on a deep valley with my struggle with Lyme disease, maybe as hurt of it as I've ever been with it. And it's an up and down journey. But when it began, we didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden, I'm so tired in the afternoon. All of a sudden, my feet hurt. All of a sudden, I have this weird muscle cramp in my groin, and I can't run like I used to. I was an adamant runner. I would love to run in the woods and do long distance runs. And I farmed, and I was having to slow down and cut that back. And, I'm going and tending the chickens here, and I'm tending the garden here, and I'm running the market farm over here, and the cows are over there. And I feel in my heart, I think, it feels like this ought to all be connected. But that was a passing thought, because I knew nothing about permaculture. And some of you who do, you know where this is going already, because it's connected. So a friend passes on a video to me. It was an old Jeff Lawton Zaytuna farm tour. And he was going around, and today I remember just being so fascinated with it. And one thing that I remember and can still see is he would have chickens in a Premier One net or similar. I don't know what they have in Australia, but this semi-permanent or semi-temporary net where he had the chickens and he had this mobile coop. And I'm like, oh, and he's using the chickens to till the ground, to get down the grass. And then he moves the chickens on, and the chickens had fertilized it with their manure and scratched the grass, tilled it. A very shallow till, not a very harmful till from a chicken. And then behind them, he would plant what he would call a food forest. So he's planting these fruit trees and other things like this. But do you see what happened there? All of a sudden, the orchard wasn't over here and the chickens weren't over here, and you going back and forth. They were actually one thing. And that really drew me, because in my heart, in my conscious, in my subconscious, I knew that's something I needed. And so I alluded to her earlier. So we didn't have any money. I mean, we were living to make ends meet. I'll give you guys some ideas if you are struggling right now. By the way, this is one of the happiest times in our life, pre-Lyme. Getting Lyme, though, then my physical ability went down and our bills went up. And it wasn't going to be sustainable anymore. But before that, it was a great life. We were still eating 3 meals together as a family. But to make ends meet, we were renting a spare bedroom on Airbnb. Not a spare house, a spare bedroom. And we hosted people from all over the world in our Airbnb bedroom for $35 a night. And it helped pay our rent. For my landlord, who was my dad, he had 2 other houses on the property. I would take everybody's trash, mow everybody's grass. We had to live on food assistance for a while, government food assistance. Embarrassed about that at the time, but you got to do what you got to do to feed the family. We were growing our food. Guys, I would go to the grocery stores, go to the co-ops, not the big chains like Whole Foods. They're there's just big liability issues and stuff. Go to these little co-ops and say, hey, before you throw the food in the dumpster, can I come once a week, twice a week, and get this food from you? I'm going to feed it to my farm animals. Tell them you're going to feed it to your farm animals. Less liability issue there. And then you take that food home, and I would literally pick through that food for us and take what's good and say, in my head, this is how I learned how to cook, y'all. I would take this stuff, and I didn't know at the time it would be this green thing. It turned out, talk to Mr. Google Pants. Oh, it's bok choy. Okay, ask Mr. Google Pants, what do I do with bok choy? And we ended up making some sort of Asian bok choy and fried eggs. It's like one of the best things. And then we would get, we might get a bunch of strawberries this week. Okay, what do we do with strawberries? We got a bunch of bell peppers once. And I remember my wife had made, golly, what's that? Stuffed peppers. It's with like a ground beef and cheese and this pepper. And I remember, Googling recipes or going to a book. I think we had Nourishing Traditions at the time, cookbook. And that's how I learned how. I didn't think I knew how to cook. But then I learned all you got to do to know how to cook is read. If you know how to read, you can cook. If you can read and follow instructions, you can cook. You have your items. But one thing that did for me, and that people are lost to, I think, when they go into growing their own food, somehow this gets lost in translation. You got to get into that mentality. We're always writing down, what do I want? And then you go to the grocery store or to the farmer's market or to wherever. But we can get into that mentality of, I got into the mentality of, what did we get the free produce that week? Now, the rest of it I throw to the chickens, and we didn't even have to ever feed our chickens grain. Between chickens on compost and chickens eating that scrap, we're good. So you learn how I learned how to cook. So then, because I was forced to say, here's what I got, here's what I can make. I even did that at Jeff's. Like, we didn't have any money at Jeff Lawton's. Other people were going to town for restaurants on the weekend on the free time, and they were going to buy stuff at the grocery store. But Jeff had said, you can have any of the food on the farm. And I think it was cold. So it was the cold hardy greens. And I just went out there and I knew how to do it. There was just like maybe some Swiss chard or something. And I didn't need the Google Pants at that time. I could just go out there. I could make my meal from the farm. And now you need to translate that into the farm. Now, what can I grow on my farm? Reasonable. That's not so difficult. What's the 80-20 of the farm? Like, what can I grow and get 80% of my results from just 20% of the effort? You know, sometimes we maybe need to forget our exotics. When I had my first permaculture designer come to the farm, this was after I had been trained. And this is okay. And I got a permaculture guy. I hired a permaculture guy last week to come and help me lay out some roads on some access roads onto our pasture. They're going to be pastured roads. But, you know, how can we also make a road a swell and catch water, but also have runoff, because we are in a temperate rainforest. So we're not trying to capture all the water. We're trying to get some of that water out of here. So you got to think. So I'm learning how. So you learn how to use what you have, okay, and make it do. So you're changing your mind shift. When that first permaculture designer came out here, first thing he said to me was, "You should grow guinea pigs and eat them." And I love that to this day. I've never done it. It's still on my bucket list, especially as a guy who eats mostly meat. I think I could get into that, you know, get some varieties of meat in my life. You know, it's a big staple in Brazil. So, but he was saying, pound for pound efficiency, guinea pigs are one of the greatest sources for meat, as opposed to the cow, which is super inefficient. Well, but we're used to eating that. And I don't know if he meant me to do that. But what he did mean to do is get me out of my box. He used to teach me the biggest thing between your success is this little, you know, your hard head, you know, your this little thin head. You got to get out of your head for a minute and open up your mind. Okay. And that helped an exercise to at least open up my mind. So I got into permaculture because I felt I needed connections. I saw Jeff. I got into permaculture for that reason. I'll get to my second point here, which is if you don't take anything away from today, take away this. Permaculture serves you. You don't serve permaculture. Maybe I upset some people with that statement, especially if you're early on, you're so excited about it. It's almost like the Bible. The Bill Mollison thing is like the Bible. Got to do it. Got to have the swell. Got to have the ducks to eat the slugs in the garden. No, you don't necessarily. You know, what does permaculture teach us? You know, Jeff Lawton told me, permaculture, you have gardening, you have, in my case, we have gardens, we have cows, we have sheep, we have pigs. In the summer, we have turkeys and meat chickens. We always have egg layers. Here's all these things. And you got to be reasonably good at all those. You got to be a jack of all trades. That means you're kind of going to suck a little at all of them too. And that's going to have to be okay if you're going to be a homesteader. It's true that a jack of all trades is maybe a hair mediocre at all of them. That's got to be okay as a homesteader. Now, if you're going to hone in on one thing, which is best, we're all learning. Everybody will tell you it's better if you can just hone in on one thing. You know, there's books been written on that. The one thing, what it should be permaculture. Because as Jeff taught me, permaculture is the toolbox that the sheep, the cow, the chicken all reside in. So if we want to be good at one thing, let's get good at permaculture and learn how to make the connections between these things and have these things work together. On my way over here, I was thinking about this talking point. If you want me to be vulnerable, We've had a couple of our feeder sheep die. Feeder sheep mean we have birthed, for us, they were birthed this spring or early winter, and we're going to harvest them in the fall as meat. Well, 2 of 6 have died, and we're addressing that. And some of the things you need to do to have a good permaculture reasonable sheep operation is sheep need to be moved regularly. They don't need to be living and being consistently in their manure. They need water. They need minerals, things like that, especially for a farm that's not going to use synthetic vaccines or dewormers or anything like that, natural or chemical. So it's very important for us to have good management practice. So I'm thinking over here, I'm supposed to move. They're in a paddock for a week, then we move them. But inside that paddock, we're supposed to move the house once a day. They're a little mobile. I have what you call a sheep shawl. You pull it like a rickshaw, but it's just a cover, and it's a shade and a shelter for the sheep. I should move that every day, or else the manure accumulates there, and that's where they're going to get their parasites. So it's been a couple of days, but we also have cows and pigs, and I have children, and a business to run, and 3 meals today to sit down at and to prepare that meal. So I will assure everyone, and so for me, I may not be able to have this permaculture perfect farm. And I'm going to let you rest easy right now by saying you won't have it either. You shouldn't have it. Because you would have given up something else that might even be more important. There are things that are more important, like your relationship with your spouse. Perhaps you have a spiritual importance to something. Children, certainly. Other thing, somebody was saying to me in a consulting way, he was consulting with me. I'm a mentor to him, and he was saying, is there any place for a pond on my farm in the instance of growing food? I'm like, well, if you like to grow fish don't have to fight gravity, and that can be a very efficient way. But heck, even if you don't like fish, even if you just we put in a pond, we put 0 fish in it. It's on our bucket list. I mean, it's on our wish list. Put some catfish in to clean up the algae. And also, in the South, we like fried catfish. It might bring some nostalgia if we have a fish fry. We used to have this fish fry out here in the country. A lot of people put their nose up to catfish, but not in the South, not in North Carolina, not in rural North Carolina. And then we could get some bass to feed on the frog eggs. Why would we do that? Well, because that's attracting the snakes, and we want kids to swim in there. Well, we haven't got the fish yet, but the kids are having a blast in there. So there is a place. Put in a pond because you want one, because it looks good, because you want to go sit on a boat in it, because you want to go journal it, or you want to paint it. That's okay too. There is a place for not. Sometimes the most practical thing you can do is impractical. You got to nurture your soul. You got to take care of that self-care. So release yourself from this pressure to have this well and the ducks what I'm alluding to here is, Bill Mollison was famous for saying, and I love it. It's so cool. He's like, you don't have a slug problem. You have a duck deficiency problem. There's a lot of truth in that. But until you can get the ducks, or want to manage the ducks, because they can be quite messy. And maybe you don't want them because you'd never feel like eating them because you don't like ducks. Because what are you going to do with them? They're done with their job, and when there are no slugs, when they've done their job. So you got to think something through here. So that is then when you just go pick them off with your hand, and you could still be permaculture because you could pick the slugs off and throw them to the chickens. I have this guy that does this straight road. I don't think he would mind me saying, but Back to Eden on Instagram, beautiful gardens, the most beautiful gardens I've ever seen. It's this Back to Eden method, the Paul Gauci method, like the wood chips and composting for mulch method. And but he does it in straight rows, and it's very beautiful, and it's a market farm, and he does till it initially one time, and then from then uses compost and mulch. And he told me once he's not a permaculturalist. I'm like, you're crazy. You are, because just because you're not planting a food forest and growing a fruit tree and having the perfect three tiers in your guild? You are, because permaculture is teaching us to look at nature and how does she do it? Well, Mother Nature's modest and she wants to be covered, and you're doing that, Nick. You're putting down compost over her. You're putting wood chips over her. Have your straight lines, your OCD, go for it. That makes you happy. Make some straight lines. It's hard to follow all the rules. You're supposed to put the garden on contour and as flat as you can. But what if you don't have a flat space, and if I were to just jump in and do the standard swell, then we're capturing water that maybe we should have let go, because, we're in a temperate rainforest, 40 inches of rain every year. One year in 2018, we had 80 inches of rain in a year. That's why we went from, I was so headstrong and hard on, let's just guard our yard. And we're going to do the mix between the Back to Eden method and having chickens on it. And we're going to have this wood chip garden, and I'm going to have I can move the chickens around to different plots, have them work, move them off, and we're just going to do it on the ground. Well, then came 80 inches of rain. And I don't care how many wood chips you have, it ain't going to absorb that much rain. They're actually going to cause you problems in that case. They're going to hold too much moisture. Your plants are going to be too wet. You're going to be growing mushrooms. And so the beautiful one, my wife, she's been nudging me for raised beds for years. Well, raised beds are expensive. Oh, they're not permaculture or whatever. Hey, first of all, gentlemen, the secret to great marriage, 2 words. Yes, dear. Let's cultivate the garden of peace first. Forget permaculture. What's the wife want? Let's fit permaculture in as best we can. How do we turn this problem into, okay, dear, let's do these raised beds. And I did think we're going to have to do these raised beds, because where our house was, we didn't get to choose where our house was. No, if I would have laid it out as a permaculturalist would, I wouldn't put it in the valley in the frost pocket. I would have put it, 50 feet up above from the creek, out of the frost pocket. Not on the view either. Permaculture teaches you don't put on the view. You don't want to haul all your resources up. You want your resources to come down. And we're in this valley, so we're collecting all this rain. And her precious tomatoes are dying. And let me tell you, you do whatever it takes not to let the beautiful one's precious tomatoes die again. Okay. So at least let it be her fault. I mean, let them be wrong. And with your kids too, let them be wrong. Let them fail. We want to help them and say, oh no, we got to do it this way. Or, oh, I learned this at Jeff Lawton wouldn't do this, or Justin wouldn't do that. Blah, blah. Be quiet. Don't do that. Let them fail. Because sometimes they won't. I've had that many times. Kids, they just want, okay, Jonah, you can plant a garden, take all the seeds you want. You like to dump seeds, and I'm over here planting my rows according to Elliott Coleman's spacing. And Jonah's just, okay, I'm done planting. And it was all kinds of different plants together. And I thought, that's going to fail. I shut my mouth. I didn't say it. Let the person fail. Let you be there for them in that failure and say, it's all right. You tried. But you also be there for them. What if it works? And then you're never the dream crusher. You're the supporter. Either way, you win. So Jonah's garden, it ended up, what happened? Jonah's garden ended up jamming. And mine was just barely getting by. What happened was a very permaculture thing. Jonah planted way too condensed, but some of the bigger crops came and shadowed the lettuce when it's getting warm. Lettuce doesn't like the warmth. And so we were doing this Jonah was doing this very permaculture thing unknowingly. The close planting was shadowing out the weeds. And from then on, we've been planting way too close. So let them go. Let the spouses go. So we planted these raised beds because the beautiful one wanted it. I didn't think it's this permaculture thing to do, but these raised beds are amazing. Oh my God. You barely have to, once you put them in, once you invest in the cedar, and we even imported soil, and once we got them going, so easy. And I've found a way. Remember, turn a problem into a solution. She wants this raised bed. Well, I'll build a chicken tractor that can perfectly fit over these raised beds, so I can still have my chickens prep the bed or help flip it after the garden's done. And one of the best, we'll get the plants going. And wood chips dried up for me. I was no longer able to get free wood chips, and I realized a lot of people can't get wood chips. But you know what? Everybody can pretty much get. Everybody has a mower or some sort of lawn. They could go out there with a string trimmer to somebody's grass and mow it, and then collect this grass and use grass as mulch. I found it to be, I love it even better than wood chips. It breaks down faster and more nitrogen in it. Everybody has it. And we mulch those beds with the grass clippings, and it's just a pleasure to garden there. Absolute pleasure, and incredibly productive. Hundreds of plants can be planted in a 4 by 8 foot raised bed. If you do the square foot gardening method, there's a book called Square Foot Gardening Method. Do that in there. How many do you need? 2, 3, and then you don't have to, was it the permaculture thing to do? It can be. Okay. Just because I'm not having this perfect back to Eden garden where I'm, move the chicken, doesn't mean I can't do what I can with a raised bed. Okay. I can incorporate the grass clipping mulches. I can incorporate the chickens if I want to. I can incorporate the too close spacing. I can incorporate companion planting. I'm going to be checking my watch. Don't think I'm being rude. I just got to check my time so I know I can get to it all. I better speed up here a little bit. You got to know your why, or you're not going to last. Remember, I talked about people rushing in. Okay. I'm sure, Rob, it's the same thing. I'm sure out of those 5,000 members, so many are from 2020 and 2021 because of COVID, and some new phrases entered my vernacular as a 44-year-old man. Food shortages never entered my vernacular. And it made people want to be sure of something, at least, especially in their food case. They wanted to be able to grow something. Our views went up on YouTube 60%. Our sales at Abundance Plus and things like that, I mean, would quadruple. Memberships and courses and books were selling like hotcakes during that time. People were running to food growing, permaculture, homesteading out of fear. What happens when you are motivated by fear? I imagine those crazy creatures in Willow. I hope some of you guys are 40 or older and you know what in the heck the movie Willow is. There were these scary dog-like things. They haunted me for years after that. I would go outside and take a leak and I was a kid, be so afraid one of those monsters were going to come around the corner. But anyway, where was I going with that? So, So I imagine if one of those things would have came out around the corner, taking a leak, I'm going to zip up. I'm going to run as fast as I can. And it's an adrenaline rush. And I can't outrun that thing for a little while. If we're running to something or away from something for fear, that adrenaline rush is going to soon wear off. And that's a lot of what we have. I shared this. There was this video on YouTube that went viral. I shared it with my audience that I wish I could remember the name of it. But these people had basically started homesteading and then basically quit. And they're not alone. Many people are quitting, but now I'm encouraged. If you're here, well, obviously you didn't quit. But I will give you encouragement because there will come a burnout time. There will. I may even be in a season of burnout right now. And I've been there before. And there are seasons of it, ups and downs, just like in nature. If we need to check our reasoning, if it's fear, and fear could be part of it. And fear is a great initiator. Let's jump out of the gate and go start. My boys had this harebrained idea, the 13 and 15. Hey, Dad, can we go bike to there's this one pizza restaurant we can eat at because they'll put our organic cheese on it. It's gluten-free. We have to be gluten-free with my Lyme and my wife's Hashimoto's. They wanted to bike to pizza. And it's like 15 miles and they've never biked anywhere, but maybe to the graveyard and back. Like that's a 2 mile there and then back. And I support them on that. And so they go on this bike ride, and they sprinted out of the gate. They had never done any endurance races or anything like that. And I'm on the radio and be like, I felt like the guys on, at the Tour de France, the backup car, you guys are going to have to slow down. You're not going to make it sprinting out of the gate. And they wouldn't. The cameraman friend of mine who was with me were filming this for their little YouTube channel. And he said, I remember doing that when I ran cross country. That's like a 5K, or 3.2 miles. And he said, I can remember starting out of the gate. And I'm like, what happened? Every single body passed me by the end of it. So that's fear. And if you got into it for fear, and maybe you're struggling now, or maybe you're going through burnout now. I remember we had Joel Salatin, the GOAT of regenerative farming, market farming. One of my friends asked him, we had Joel Salatin out. They asked him, how do you deal with burnout? I'll never forget his answer. You get a vision. He didn't go off this checklist of make sure you go to bed at night, make sure you laugh every day, make sure you are eating well, make sure you're sleeping well, get some sunshine, which is all important. He said, check your vision. You got to have a bigger vision. You got to have something bigger than you. Pete Canaris, one of the greatest permaculture designers in America, doing phenomenal stuff, actually doing permaculture design for a living, installs down in Florida. He came up for a visit after in 2018. And it was that year it rained so much. And it rained 19 inches that year he was here. It was miserable. It never stopped. It was pouring all the time. And we were out there, and I wasn't well equipped with rain gear. And I was miserable. And he must have could tell. And he said, why do you do this? And I'm like, good question. And I really had to dig deep in that moment to figure out, why the hell did I do this? And I said, I then realized, and I said, Pete, I'm doing this for my grandkids, guys. I don't have any grandkids. I'm gonna be the greatest big papa ever, because I'm already planning and doing for them. I said, you know what? I'm doing this for my grandkids. And what I was doing that day, I think we were on our way to move the chickens. Maybe it was a batch of meat chickens, moving them around on the pasture. They overload it with their manure. I mean, I would almost have meat chickens just for that, even if I wasn't going to eat meat, because you move them out and it's brown and disturbed and all eaten at first, and it's ugly. But in just 2 or 3 weeks, it's so green. You can see visibly where you were. That's why I did it, because I'm making this farm and land a better place for my grandchildren. So I had that vision. So why do I come out this morning? Why am I going to get up tomorrow morning, which sucks? Everybody else is doing something else Sunday morning. What do people do on Sunday morning? Some people go to church. Some people watch movies, play games, binge something, go to a barbecue. I'm getting up just like I did Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We're going to milk that cow. It gets old. It gets boring. And it gets miserable sometimes. But I can go out there. I just went out there with yesterday, I guess, and I was like, I wish you could see this. I wish you could have seen this 6 years ago. This pasture that's 35% grade. And permaculture Bill will tell you, don't graze anything over 20%. Well, I'm grazing 35% grades. And I can do it because I'm moving the cows on it every day. What's the best thing for a 35% grade pasture? Rotational grazing, I've found. Run those cows through it. Behind the cows come the sheep. And what the cows don't eat, the sheep are, the first thing they go through is the multiflora rows. Cowboy is going to hate that stuff. But you don't hate it if you're a permaculturalist and also have sheep. All right, I got to keep moving. So you got to have a big why. Hope is usually more sustaining than fear. I had the hardest time getting up in the morning, still have the hard time getting up in the morning, going to school. And what I learned early on is my mom would wake me up and I couldn't stand it. I would think, oh, what do I have to look forward to that day? So today I might have thought, well, I got the show I'm going to do. I've got the chicken bacon soup coming up. The boys are going to go play airsoft, and that brings me joy. They're going to go have some fun, whatever. Think of something that you can look forward to. today, when tomorrow it sucks to get up. By the way, the secret to getting up at 5:30 in the morning isn't the Miracle Morning book. Anything that's great. I'm sure it has a place for some people. The secret to getting up at 5 a.m. is the Miracle Evening. Having the discipline to get into bed by 8, 9 o'clock. The secret to getting up at 5, go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock every single day. And then get up at the same time every single day. That's the secret. Let's go into number 4. So I only have 7. I have 15 minutes here. So I'll get to them. Don't worry, I'll get to them. Do I have any regrets? So practical homesteading. If the biggest regret I would have is that I did not document early. So guys, get on there. Post an Instagram post. Post on X every day. Post a TikTok. Post a blog. Post a YouTube video. Whatever. A podcast. Out of all those, maybe you like to take a picture, or maybe you like to do really short instructional stuff, or maybe you could do Instagram Reels, or maybe you would like YouTube. Maybe you'd like to put up documentaries style stuff, or vlogs, or instructional how-to stuff. Maybe you'd just like to talk to other cool people, and so you're going to do a podcast. You maybe don't want your face to be seen, so you're doing a podcast. Maybe you like to write your old school blog. Here's the key to I say that. Why? What's the benefit? How's that practical homesteading? Because you're going to come to a place of burnout, and community helps you pursue and last. And the creating of content could turn into a career. I sought it out as a career. It's always been a business for me. Doesn't mean it can't be a right livelihood. It's a good business. I'm providing value for people. They're exchanging it for money. And it's a good thing. So document, though, it could turn into a business. It could be a business. It will certainly give you a sense of community. And almost even like when I was daily vlogging, keeps me accountable, keeps me going, keeps me on projects. It's going to be more exciting to the viewer if I'm always doing something. So always do something, it keeps me accountable to always doing something, and document and check myself and learning. I might post. I've learned so much from commenters, people emailing me, commenting. Like I just got a log ox. I didn't realize you could just pick up a big log that maybe you've just cut. I'm getting 44. I've got Lyme disease, back's a little sore. I didn't know there was this tool that you could actually just pick up the log and put it on your splitter without barely bending over. A viewer told me about that like a week and a half ago. I bought the log ox. People are always wanting to, where can I find community? Where can I find a permaculture community? Where can I find a homestead community? I had zero permaculture, zero homestead community when I was at Jeff Lawton's training, 8, 9 years ago. And now I'm overwhelmed with it. Now I have to, unfortunately, say no to many opportunities to narrow in on what I have. I'm getting spread too thin. So what I'm saying here, don't find community, create community. Be the solution to the problem. Okay. So I regret that I didn't post. It's become a farm journal for me. Hey, when did the pig have the piglets? Because we need to know when to harvest. Okay. Oh, that was so-and-so month. That was January. Oh, they should be up to weight by now. What's wrong? Oh, Josiah, you haven't been feeding them all they can eat like we're supposed to. Okay, we need to amp that up. They need to be getting all they can eat. You know what I mean? It's a farm journal. I'm not the kind of guy to write it down in a note or, try to put it into my Apple calendar so I can quickly look it up. But I never end up doing it. So I end up just looking at the vlog. In a real practical sense, a homestead sense, I go back and forth on this because I regret that I didn't get access roads in, whether they be grass or like gravel roads. And I regret that I didn't establish my gravity fed water that I've now established. I have a creek on top of the property I can collect from for gravity fed water. It's wonderful now that we've had it. I feel like that's really something I should have had a long time ago, but I had a well. and we were farming close to the house, and the well was working. Guys, we get caught up in this. Oh, I got to have the gravity fed. Oh, I've got to turn my own compost. I got to start my own seeds. I got to do everything, bake everything from scratch. At some point, we want to give back to the community and support the community, and we need to, because we can't or shouldn't do all of that. So I counted on the well. For years I felt guilty that I wasn't heading towards off grid. I come to realize and embrace that I love the grid. Right now, it's affordable and manageable, and embracing that evil is enabling me to do so much more good. At some point, we all have to compromise. You're all watching this on a plastic computer or phone, which will be with us for 450 years. But hopefully, at some point, we'll say, this is the compromise, but I'm going to have to go with it because I'm going to get so much more good out of it. I remember I felt so conflicted when I went on the Great American Farm Tour. I saw J.M. Fortier, my friend Casey Oswich, using silage tarps. So they would put down silage tarps to suppress the weeds, and it serves as a mulch in that way and to retain moisture. But it's plastic. I mean, it is a 25-foot by 100-foot piece of plastic I'm getting. I'm covering a 25 by 50-foot, 4 of those. So I don't know, what's that, 1,200. I'm almost 5,000 square feet of plastic I need for my garden. So yeah, it's gonna be with us 450 years. Now, if it enables me, because I can put that down, keeps the weed suppressed. By the way, when I went and lifted it up for the very first time, I was sold, because of all the worm castings and the life it had created for the worms. I was completely sold. And then I just lift it up and I could just plant my seeds. I'm not having to shallow hoe or whatever to get it ready or this and that. And it was so much time saver, made me so much more efficient. That's less food that has to be trucked in. So to supplement my diet, if I'm able to grow more myself, that's the local food movement at its best. And I don't have to bring the trucks in. So get our blinders off. We get so caught up in the grid is so bad, but everything has a blessing and a curse. How can I use it for good? For us, in the very practical sense, we were spending thousands of dollars on clean, whole, organic foods for our diet because we are in it for health because of our diseases. So where was I going with that? So yeah, we had the. So if we're doing it for health, then where was I going with that?
Got to be pragmatic.
Pragmatic
and practical.
Oh yeah. So yeah, at the pragmatic and practical instance, you're gonna have to find yourself oh yeah. So there it was. I got it now. The $300. So we're spending $300 on electricity a month versus $3,000 buying our own food. I always tell people and encourage people, grow what's close to your heart. Imagine your money is tied up and it's strung up to your heart. Where your money is, there your heart is. So you're that's where it is. So we needed to, even though off grid is sexy and cool and mean old grid, mean old inefficient grid, is it compared to like if I had to still buy, because we only have so much time, money, and energy. I needed to invest what little time, money, and energy I had, not into off-grid resources, but into food growing resources. And I'm not saying we won't ever go there, because there probably will be a time that energy isn't so efficient anymore or isn't so affordable anymore. All right. Question. I would encourage you to question everything. Number 5, I'll have to speed up here. You've already questioned, you're already a weirdo, right? I already talked about that. I am too. Don't think it's bad or that we're wrong. You've already dared to question a norm because you're here at a permaculture talk on a Saturday. Keep questioning. Keep going. Because I had questioned the norm and I was in permaculture and on the Permies.com forum board back in the day, I saw somebody recommend the book Free to Learn. It was a book on unschooling. And so it really kind of has nothing to do with permaculture, does it? And I picked up that book and stumbled into one of the most beautiful things I've ever done for my children. If I had a parenting book I would recommend, it would be that one. And it's not even a parenting book. It's a book about school and how kids really learn in a creative, allowed to explore kind of way. So I think because you have questioned the norm in one thing, at least, you've probably questioned more things before you got to permaculture. Let's just recognize that now and still continue to question everything. Question the holidays you celebrate. Dare you question your religion you grew up in? Dare you question your politics, especially in the last couple of years? Challenge yourself. Things change. Oh my God. It can be as simple as, do we still like eating ducks? I mean, I went to a restaurant, had duck for the first time. I'm like, we got to grow some duck. It's delicious. And we grew some ducks. We enjoyed duck tacos for a couple of years. And then I was kind of like, Rebekah, I'm not really feeling it anymore. Are you? And she's like, no. And okay. I mean, it can be as little as that, but it can be as heavy as religion or politics, health choices, diet, we've sprung all over the spectrum there, from vegetarian to carnivorism. So what's the worst going to happen? There are going to be some things that are cultural norms. Like for me, I adore marriage. I like that. I adore having kids. These are like cultural norms, but there might be some things you abhor, like the normal food system or the normal school system, or maybe you're going to challenge think for yourself on the medical system and begin to question that. I don't know. And it's okay to embrace some and love others. Like Rebekah, as much as anybody, like to catch the newest, coolest series on Apple TV or Netflix that may have nothing to do with homesteading, and that's okay. But at least we've taken a time to say, how does it serve us? Okay. Netflix serves us. We don't serve Netflix. That might be the motto here, is how do we, if everything has a blessing and a curse, how do we get more blessing out of something than the curse? That may be the key, is that know that we need to be using it. It doesn't need to be using us. Far as permaculture homesteading tips are concerned, some of the most bang for your buck that I discovered is, and I've alluded to it in this whole talk, so I can just touch here shortly, proximity. We learn in permaculture the zones. Make sure you learn and hone in on those zones. I'm sure Rob will go into that in great detail in his course. You want to know where to put things. I mean, if somebody gives you a blueberry tree, where do you put it? And a lot of people end up putting it in their yard. Why are you going to put a blueberry tree in your front yard? You plant it. Initially, you water it once a week for a few weeks. Then you go weed it maybe once a year. And then you go harvest from it 2, 3, maybe every day for 2 weeks. But your chickens, maybe you're letting them out in the morning and putting them up every single day. I mean, at least you're going to go get their eggs every single day. So that's 1 to 2 visits every single day. That's 700 visits. So permaculture teaches us, think about all the different things you want to do, all these different elements, the chickens, the gardens, and put it to your house as close as you can for proximity. And that will go a long way. I mean, put your chickens in your front yard if it's socially acceptable. If your beautiful one will let you, and you aren't going to get kicked out of your neighborhood, put them in the front yard. If the beautiful one let me, I would have the chickens egg basket, nesting box right outside the window. I'd just go over to the kitchen window, open up the window, grab the eggs, take it to the kitchen. So put those highly visited things as close to the house as possible. And then let's do connections and proximity. So you can go manage chickens and you can go manage gardens, but hey, no, let's make a connection. And let's put chickens and gardens next to each other. And I've done that in my front yard. Here are the chickens. Here's the garden. And now somebody who doesn't even eat many vegetables still loves gardening, because I go in there and I pick out the weeds and I throw them to my chickens, my precious eggs and chicken meat. And when the produce is done and there's extra, there's rotten, or there's really ugly, or some of the bugs got that one, throw it to the or we're picking bugs off the plants, throw them to the chickens. And so the garden has fed the chickens. And now the chickens are on wood chips. And so they're on this deep bedding, and they over time are fertilizing and scratching. And every spring we rake some of that surface deep bedding off, and it's composted. They composted for you. I didn't have to turn it once. And we take a wheelbarrow or two of compost and put it back into each garden bed. And then the chickens have fed the garden. Put them next to each other. And think about how you could do that with other things. I alluded to, we have the cows. We're moving them every day in the pasture. Well, we leave the temporary fence that we set up for the cows for the sheep that day. And then when the sheep have gone through it, then we pick up that net, and that's the next day's for the cow. So the cows and the sheep are working together. So you're saying all the elements that you want, say a chicken or a garden. What does a chicken need? What does a chicken give? What does a garden need? What does a garden give? And you can start to make connections. You could do that for apple tree. What does the apple tree need, give? And then, maybe you can incorporate some chickens into your apple tree. Maybe you run the chickens through there in the fall when all the fruit has fallen to the ground that you didn't want to eat, and they eat that, but then they're fertilizing and debugging. Okay. And then I would say, consider the elements. Bill Mollison talks about thinking about where your sun is, where your wind is. And guys, you're going to have to get with Rob and get in this course, because we're not going to have enough time to really give you the greatest benefit on this. We're touching the tip of the iceberg here. Like house orientation, for sure. People be paid. I don't know if it's like this in Canada. I imagine it is. In the US, we're putting houses facing the road. What's up with that? They have no sense of where's the sun. At the very least, you want your sun in the, I'm assuming we're in the northern hemisphere. It's opposite in the southern, but you want your house facing the south, and you want your living and your kitchen areas, the places you're spending the most time in during the day, on the southern side. And that way it gets naturally heated and lit by the sun. That would be a thing. Like, why do you even need the grid at all? Why do you even need that energy at all? Like, why do you even need off-grid energy? Like, can you live without that kind of energy, period? I mean, that would be a challenge for somebody too. It hadn't been that long ago that we did live without either energies, and we were just fine. So that would be one way to need less energy, is face your house towards the south. The bedroom's on the north where it's cooler. We like it cool at night when we go to bed. Get the house out of the frost pocket. Don't go to the view. Don't molest the view. The view needs to be a sacred place. The view is going to grow old after 3 days. Have a hiking spot and a picnic table at the view. Get off that view. You're exposed to the wind. You're exposed to oncoming threats, whatever. You have to haul all your resources up 50 feet up out of the frost pocket, preferably south-facing slope. So if you're looking for land, see if you can't find something south-facing. See if you can't find water source above the area, a spring, a pond, a little creek above the house, so that you're putting resources downhill. Lastly, we got to turn problems into solutions. When I was at Jeff's, I was training, one guy spoke up. His name was Sela. He said, the core of the problem is the seed of the solution. So we may look at something, take my Lyme disease, for example. It's terrible, especially rough lately. I mean, I had a breakdown last night. I had a good weep last night. I had to take my wife. I had to step away and have a good cry. And so with that, everyone, for all you hurting out there, it's okay to hurt. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. These are human emotions, just like happy. It doesn't make you wrong. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to embrace it. The best thing I did for my Lyme disease was sit down and say, how am I going to turn this problem into a solution? I did that I had to slow down on the market farm. I had to quit market farming, but I ended up launching this amazing content creation business that far surpasses what fulfillment I could have ever gotten from that. I sat down and I said, what is the good that has come from Lyme disease? And finally, I came to the point to say, thank you. And I began to thank Lyme disease. And I need that reminder now. And I began to see him as my friend. Pain, by the way, is our friend. It's our bodies. Try not having pain. I mean, that's the problem with leprosy. You don't experience the pain. And so you have things happen to your body and it doesn't stop. Like you could get burned and not even know it. I read this wonderful book called The Gift of Pain. If anybody's in pain, I highly recommend that book for a change of perspective there. I finally sat down and I thanked Lyme disease because Lyme, you showed me how beautiful and caring my wife is in this time. You opened up my mind to the health world. And now I have this overall body health experience that I'm passing on to my children, proper diet, getting in the sun, getting cold exposure, making sure I weight train and, get the steps in and eat right. And so, and these are things I can pass on to my children now. And thank you, Lyme, for giving me this audience and for giving me this business and giving us the success and fulfillment. So I challenge you, lastly, as a closing here, before we get to the Q&A and stuff, is challenge yourself. It's what's the name of that book, Matt? Do we know that? It's The Problem is the Solution. No, it's not called that. It's The Obstacle is the Way. That's a recent book that would probably help folks with this. Help you figure out how to turn that problem into solution. But basically, you sit down with a journal. I sat down with a Moleskine and I said, what's the solution here? What's the benefit? What's the takeaway? You can do that with the big problems in your life, and they don't have to be your farming problems. Lyme has nothing to do with growing food. I sat down and said, this is my life problem. Maybe you have a problem with your relationship, your most intimate relationship with your kids or your spouse. Maybe it's a spiritual problem. Maybe it's just you're drowning in debt. I don't know. You can take that problem and say, how can I turn this into a solution? And want it. You've got to really want it first, and then write down six things. Like, make yourself sit for an hour and write down these 6 things. And one of them might be absolutely ridiculous. If you're drowning in debt and in over your eyeballs, or maybe like Rob, my financial state, when I talked to you, like we were near not being able to feed my children. One of them might be rob a bank. That might be one thing you think of, but I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying free your mind up to say that. That's not going to be the one you pick. But it just taking away any perimeters from your mind will allow you to do it. Like, I can't afford organic feed, but I must not eat GMOs. We found ourselves in that situation and had to pay 3 times as much for the feed. Well, how do we afford it? You know how we afford it? We start moving the chickens every day instead of once a week. And we start rationing their food back until it affects their egg production. And then it's not harder to raise 24 chickens as opposed to just 12. And we can sell the abundance. We can sell the increase. If it's not harder to raise 24 chickens than 12, raise 24 and sell the extra eggs and pay for the feed. Challenge your mind. See how out of the box that is? And maybe it's so out of the box. It's like, oh, maybe I afford chicken feed by renting out my spare bedroom like Justin did on Airbnb back in the day. I create some Airbnb experience and list it, or I have a farm tour. And so maybe it's not even direct. Maybe you're picking up a side hustle to make it happen. So I'll end with that. Let's sit down and challenge your mind to come up with the solution. And give yourself a moment. Give your mind a moment. It will come up with a solution.
Wow, Justin, that was really profound. I think like most of what I'll speak for myself, I got out of a PDC is a shifting of perspective, mindset, belief, and like you can get that in a 2-week period of time. But the thing that I think really resonated with me, and for sure something that I've received as a result of this life that I've chosen is accountability. And that's the community piece, right? Mm-hmm. And your family. And so mindset, belief, accountability, so valuable. As you like, the brain's a funny thing. It's if you focus on the fear, it moves you into that croc brain at the back. And all the really smart stuff comes from the front in the prefrontal cortex. We got to keep the blood flowing there. And when we change our mindset to be of fear and we look at things in the worst possible way, it removes our body's ability to leverage the prefrontal cortex. And so much of that, like permaculture is a design system. It's a way of thinking about things. And if we use some of those aphorisms that Jeff and Bill and all of these amazing people that the shoulders with which we stand on, it really helps to keep things moving. So we're going to take a short break. And if you haven't put your questions in, folks, there's links going up all the time. I'm going to talk a little bit about our PDC. Then Justin and I are going to have a short conversation, kind of recapping some of the stuff Justin just talked about. And I've got a few questions for him. And then we're going to curate some of the questions that you guys are putting up into that form. And then stay tuned. We're actually giving we've got a contest for a spot to the PDC. So make sure you stay tuned for that contest. So folks, our PDC is right around the corner. And it starts November 14th. We are doing it online this year, as we have for the last couple of years since the start of COVID. And that might seem a bit strange, but it's live. We're there all the way through there. We're holding you accountable. When we first launched our live PDC at the beginning of COVID, I was really reluctant to take our in-person courses into a digital environment. And I've noticed that there's actually students from our past courses on the chat. So if you're listening and you've taken an online course from us, please pipe up and tell us how that experience went for you and how it's changed your life, how you've implemented some of these ideas. And it's a multi-month process where we take you through the information. And what's amazing about this format, which I didn't anticipate, is that you're able to take the information in bite-sized pieces. Both Justin and I trained with Jeff in a 2-week course. It's an absolute fire hose coming at you for 2 weeks. Super inspiring for sure. But it's hard to kind of wrap your head around all of it when it's coming at you all at once. And so being able to take it in small bite-sized chunks over a period of time allows you to kind of metabolize the information in a way that's hard when you're getting it over a 2-week period of time. So if you're interested in having a community, accountability, a huge cohort of an academy of instructors from all over the world doing all sorts of amazing things, this is probably the course that you should consider. We're going to be giving away a ticket at the end of today's presentation. So there's going to be a link that goes up into the chat, and we'll be doing a random number generator. So if you haven't taken a course and you're wanting to enter that contest, then stay tuned. We're going to be going to Q&A here with Justin right away. I'm going to ask him a few questions here shortly, and make sure you get your questions answered. There's been a link going up every few minutes. We are monitoring the YouTube channel as well, so that link is going up there, and we will be aggregating those questions in addition to that. So without further ado, let's bring Justin back. Him and I are going to have a short conversation, and we'll go from there. One of the things, Justin, that I'm sure resonated with you, but has really resonated with me over these years, is for every dollar I have in the bank, I've got $10,000 in relationships. And your video is still off the perfect. And it's just amazing how you can look at how much it costs to live, but you were alluding to this. There's so many different ways of solving a problem. And so a lot of us get kind of caught in this mindset of, I need to have the money to do it. But when you realize that you're surrounded by all this wealth of knowledge, skills, especially in these rural areas, I find there's a million different ways to solve stuff. And sometimes you just got to get creative and kind of think outside the box. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So I always tell people, this is one of the best things I've ever done for myself is eliminate can't from the mentality. Like stop can't. Don't say I can't. It's often happens. Oh, I can't go because this, or I can't afford organic chicken feed. maybe it's an excuse. Oh, I can't go to the party because I'm this and that. Own it, at least, because you're just deflating and defeating yourself, and you're just weak. You can't. You're not able. It's not good for yourself. Just own it and say, I won't. I'm just too busy. I'm just not going to do that right now. I'm sorry. Blah blah. If you do want to really start growing your own food, but money's getting in your way, or I did want to switch to organic from GMO, but I couldn't afford it. I mean, the money wasn't there. Go from I can't afford it to how can I afford it? And seriously, write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and don't stop until all those are filled up. And you might not be able to fill them up in one thought session. The thoughts may come to you while you're on a jog, in the car, while you're listening to some podcast, unrelated thing. Sometimes we get stuck and we just need to go to bed, and it comes to us in the morning. But it's the idea, though, that force yourself and give your brain an exercise. You'll be amazed at what comes of that. Just getting away from the can't mentality, and instead of saying can't, say how can I?
Yeah, and there's the can't mentality, and then there's the victim mentality. And that was the other thing that really struck me in the permaculture design course, was like the prime directive is the only ethical decision is to take the responsibility of ourselves and that of our children, and to get our house and garden in order, so that it shelters and feeds you. And it's like so much of society blames our problems on everybody else, and you just end up sitting there, paralyzed, not knowing what to do. But there really are so many lateral moves that you can make once you get that design mentality in your head. I mean,
we can apply this. I mean, people are going to perhaps want to take your course, and they might think of all different kinds of reasons why they can't. I can't get away from work. I can't leave the family for 2 weeks, or whatever it is. I can't afford it. In the case of me, I was about as difficult as it could be for anybody. We had no money. I had young kids. It was as far as I could possibly go away on the globe. I didn't have a clear vision. I didn't necessarily have a design. I didn't go into it with the idea that Jeff's course was oriented very much. You're going to come out a designer, and you can go design for people, and that's what you can do for a career. And I wasn't sure that's what he's going to need going into it. So I had all the reasons not to. But I desired it so badly. I didn't know this mentality structure yet. But looking back, I said, how can I? I said, oh, we got a tax return coming up. Oh, we could get one of our friends to help Rebekah with some of the kids while we're gone, etc. And then we'll go there with an open mind. And you said, that's one of the best things you got out of yours, is it just gives you this different way of thinking. That would probably be the number one thing I got out of it too. I mean, you get the practical stuff, and I came away knowing how to lay out my farm much better. And just then, just with that, made it worth it. But you can't put a price on what I gained with gaining a different mindset.
Yeah, totally. So you've come through the ups and the downs over the years, and you're obviously looking at the world in a totally different set of lenses than you were when you first started. But now that you are where you are, and I love that quote, success, overnight success takes 10 years. I think that's how it goes. There's a lot of hard work along the way, but what are you most concerned about right now in the world? In any of the domains that you've talked about, politics, health, farming, soil, like what are the things that keep you up at night right now? And I know you're trying to project this positive mentality, but we're all still human. We still have those responses. I'm just curious what keeps you up.
What would keep me up is individual worries in my own life that I feel like I perhaps do have control over. And I say perhaps, things have slowed down, from the COVID rush. I mean, you could you could sell a membership or whatever by just, hey, we got a new member area. It's a new app. It's going to help you. Link in the description. People go get it. But, things change. So I guess what keeps me up constantly and like is or makes me nervous. The first thing I get up, if there's a dread in my head, it's like, I know things change and things are changing quickly. So in my mind, it's the business stuff. It's how is content creating changing? What is TikTok how is that gonna, the rise of TikTok, how's that gonna affect what's happening on YouTube? YouTube introducing YouTube Shorts. How do I jump on that? Because I feel like looking back, I made some good decisions. At one point I was jumping on the newest thing, Periscope. It was the first time we could live show from our phone. And all the business guys were saying, it's it. Well, where's it now? It's like non-existent. And I feel like looking back, I jumped to YouTube just in time. So it's kind of like, I feel like I always need to be on guard of what's the next thing. And so, I tried TikTok for a while, learned I did not want to have that app on my phone. So just wasn't going to go there. And, I keep coming back to that, but also trying to then build redundancy and resilience. I mean, that's one thing that permaculture would teach us is, you don't want you don't want all your eggs in one basket. You don't want all your income and revenue and audience and share. It goes for a farm too. You don't want to put everything in just one thing. The diversity is good, even if it spreads you out a little thin, and maybe you're not as expert as you could be in each thing. One thing though, that would maybe, you talk about, the grand politics, maybe the direction, this is an interesting story. When we were having the pizza party at the end of the permaculture design course. It's a homemade pizza. It was so good. We had just finished. We had made friends with people. And I said to this gentleman, he was a young guy. I think he was younger than me at the time. And I said, I've always been fascinated with this. I'm sitting in a house that had no running water and electricity back in the 1930s when my grandpa bought this farm during the Great Depression. Bought this 75 acres for $500. And my granny can remember seeing the first car come down the road. So she can remember that world-changing technology. And then my dad can remember getting running water and electricity in here. And then I can remember, what can I remember as a 44 years old? I can remember, there's been several. I mean, maybe it's speeding up because I can remember internet. I remember getting on the internet the first time around college time, shopping on Amazon, and then smartphones. And now it's probably now it's all happening. It's happening faster, isn't it, Rob? Because now it's like AI. That's in my mind, seemingly without a doubt, the next big technological advance that's going to alter the way we live our lives. But everything, take a deep breath here. Everything has a blessing and a curse. But what I've found, Joel Salatin has a saying of, the earthworms don't care who's president. Everybody's getting upset, Trump or Biden. The earthworms don't care. So there's a lot of depth maybe to that, where we could think, well, maybe if I need to commune with the earthworms a little bit more. And I found that when you are milking a family cow, we actually have 2, with your children, and you're managing these sheep, you don't want them to get another one to get sick and die. And you got to get the pigs out of the deep bedding. They've been into it long. There's all these things on our to-do list. We just put in the pasture access road. We need to really get the hay or straw mulch on that as soon as possible before we lose topsoil. Where was I going with that? You just have to.
We were talking about the kind of the big overarching existential issues.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. So yeah, when you get busy doing that and you're communing with the earthworms, you don't have time to think about that. And it's it's what Stephen Covey would call outside your realm of influence anyway.
Yeah.
What can I really do about it? You're going to avoid AI. You're going to avoid using ChatGPT. That's not going to stop it. It's not going to stop it. It's coming. So you getting out there and communing with the earthworms, you're going to be contributing and doing something positive. You're not going to have time to worry about that stuff. And at the same time, you're going to be contributing to the solution, to the problem.
Totally.
Because growing your own food is so much the answer to many of the world's problems. But I was talking to this gentleman saying, what's the next one? And I just said, well, now, fast forward, now I know, but what's the one after that? But when I was talking to him and I said, what's the next one? I think we had smartphones. I'm like, what's the next ones? Maybe we didn't even have smartphones at the time. What's the next one? Because I had told him, my granny on this farm, horse and carriage, everybody. And then, here comes the car. And he said, well, maybe we'll go back to the horse and carriage. And I thought, well, that might not actually be so bad.
Totally. Yeah. Things do change really quickly. And I think that's a really powerful message that you just briefly touched on. It and actually derives from Stoicism, but sphere of influence versus sphere of control.
Yeah.
And because you get so busy on these properties and with families and stuff, like I've just turned off all of my social media. I don't want to. The thing that really irks me the most, and I guess I get it less. I get it more through kind of students and through these courses and stuff. But there's this underlying message that comes from all these channels that humans are inherently destructive. Like if you think about the conventional system, which is like corporations and doing their thing and trying to maximize value. That's kind of like paradigm one. Paradigm two is the sustainable paradigm, which is like net neutral houses and carbon zero and like sustainability. And like, if you really like dig into that message, it's at best humans can be maybe neutral, like xeriscaping and net neutrality. And the message that really resounds for me in permaculture is that we can be just as positive as we are negative. So you can't stop having a footprint, like, because we have a weight, and when we walk on the earth, we leave a footprint, but you can control how that footprint is left. And we can be just as good as we are bad. And so all these things that we're talking about, as you say, have two edges. There's a double-edged sword there, and it's important to kind of keep that in mind. I have one last question for you, and then we're going to move it over to the audience. So the other thing that moves really quick, which you've probably seen numerous times now, is how fast Earth heals. So there's all these like crazy problems that we hear about through that sustainability paradigm, and that we're all doomed and whatever. It's super negative. But the ironic thing is like you say, the earthworm doesn't care. It just wants to do its work, and we just got to get out of its way and sometimes even support it. It's amazing how fast nature heals itself. But I'm curious, permaculture has obviously played a really important role, but as I've watched you over the years, Rebekah has been a really big keystone in your life. And I just curious, like how her influence and support has, how important that's been for you in order to be successful in the end. I mean, it comes out in your YouTube videos, but I just want to hear your wisdom and thoughts on all of that, and how important it's been to be rowing together as a couple. And even like watching your kids. I mean, you guys are all supporting each other. You're a team, kind of rowing in the same direction. So I don't know if you want to close on how you brought the family along with you and how important that's been to, I know there's the content stuff, but there's a deeper life underneath the content production that you're showcasing there. That's just the surface. There's something else going on underneath there that I think is more profound.
That's good. I love those kinds of questions. Yeah. So, a lot of people I'll tell this story first. So there would be no Justin Rhodes without Rebekah Rhodes, in the sense of here I am on the show. Or on YouTube. When we were struggling to find, just had the Lyme, struggling to find a business that we could do physically and mentally, had read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss. So we're looking at getting into this content creation business. And the takeaway from that book was we're going to create a product that's informational video and a companion ebook. And we landed on chickens. I had done chickens for 10 years. I wanted to learn more about them. I felt like I was the best at that of all of my homestead ventures. And we set out to do that, but I still felt insecure. So I felt like I was going to be a producer and not the star. And I was going to line up somebody else for a star. And I actually lined them up. We contracted a royalty payment for them. And then they were also author, and their publisher caught wind of it and said, no, you can't do that. We have the film rights. And they put the kibosh on it. And so here I am, heavy long into this harebrained idea to get us. I talked to you probably soon before this launch. Like, we were out of money. This Kickstarter is what got us that first footing. And what are we going to do? And then I had this crazy harebrained idea that I might be the star, that I might be the teacher and the presenter. Because who else am I going to get? That was too much trouble, and we've got to get this going. Like, okay. I nurtured up the nerves. I think this idea is okay. I need to run it by the beautiful one. I take a deep breath. I sit down, and I say, Rebekah, I'm all shy and I'm just ready for it. I'm just ready. Of course, no, you can't do that. You need to get some Arthur. You need to get somebody that people know. I mean, nobody knew me at this time. I said, I think I ought to be the star. And she said, you can do it. Just like so casual, and just like, maybe it was even like, sure. Oh my God. That's why, if you don't believe me, that the solution, it's not going to solve it all. I'm not going to pretend like I know it all, but that's why you say, yes, dear. That's why you cultivate the garden of peace before anything else. That's why because that is the most important, that you have their support. And I wouldn't be here without her support. And I get emotional just thinking about that. Me being in an insecure place, and she could have totally made fun of me at that moment even. And she had no idea how heavy it was on me, but just like having faith, it's so good to have someone else to have faith in you, but you got to have faith in them first. People will come to me. One of the number one question is, how do I get my spouse on board with homesteading? We could say, how do I get my spouse on board with permaculture? My short answer is you don't. And nobody likes to hear that. We want to get them on board. But the short answer is relationship is more important. They may be asking their football buddies on the forum, how do I get my wife into football, Monday Night Football? So you likely came into the relationship not doing permaculture or garden or whatever it is, homesteading. You've got to then meet them where they're at, work within those boundaries, and just do as much as you can within that relationship. Because in the end, you had that likely before this came along, and you're going to have that likely when it's gone. When you're like, and I don't mean like you're going to shun it one day, or which you might, or maybe you move on from it. Maybe you outlive it. You get to a sense where you can't even, I mean, you're going to get old. So, but the relationship's still going to be there.
Deep. That's great. So we're going to go to another break here, folks, and then we're going to come back and get your questions answered by Justin. So make sure you get your questions into the link that we've been posting. So, folks, our PDCA starts on November 14th. If you're looking to start your journey and change the way that you look at the world, open your eyes to all of the possibilities. You could be wanting to get into this course to grow your own food, to build community, to create resilience, to get that massive, massive shift in perception in the craziness of the world. And part of it could be the craziness of the world, and part of it could just be the double-edged sword of social media that benefits from the negativity. I mean, social media really does benefit from bad news, but I'm here to tell you that there is a community of thousands of people. The sun never sets on permaculture. Mollison used to say that when I'm going to bed, somebody else in the world is working silently on their own property, changing the world one garden at a time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these existential crises are the result of people not taking control and responsibility of their life. They're expecting somebody else to step in and solve these problems, but the problems are actually solved all outside your backyard. And that was the thing that really drew me into permaculture initially. Was I remember being young and being a bit of an activist and mad that the government didn't come in and solve these problems for us. But what I learned through studying this system is that most of the problems are the aggregate of all of the decisions that we individually don't make. And so when you start taking control of your life and what actions you do on a daily basis, if enough of us do this, the problems will actually disappear. So the course is a 72-hour live and online certification. We do it through Zoom. People have their videos on, so you're doing it with a cohort of people, and you can see their smiley faces throughout all of the courses. It happens over 4 months. It starts on November 14th. It goes to March 11th. Everybody designs their own property. So you come in with either your property or a friend's property to design. We mark it for you, we give you feedback on it, and you actually produce something with the information that you get over the 4-month period of time. We meet on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 3 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. All classes are recorded, so if you miss any of them, you can come back and watch them again. And we have internationally recognized guest instructors. And in fact, not only just internationally recognized guest instructors, but we also have an international cohort. So people are coming to us from all over the world, Europe and Africa, right across the United States, Australia, New Zealand. We really do have an incredible global community of people. So there's 2 levels to choose from. We've got a foundational package. This is 1,199 Canadian dollars, or about 970 US, or a pro package, which is got way more built into it, which is $2,199. You'll notice that there's early bird prices. So that's why there's 2 numbers there. So if you get in early, you'll get a discount on the program. And I know that we are getting lots and lots of registrations, so I'm excited to meet all of you folks in this new cohort starting here just in a couple of months. So let's head over to Q&A. I'm just going to see here what is going on with our Q&A document. And we will, here we go. Actually, just give me a second here, folks. I'm just looking for my spreadsheet. It's funny, I was all prepared for this, and now I can't find my spreadsheet.
That's okay, Rob. It just makes you real.
Yeah, that's right. I'm being vulnerable with you guys. Okay, here we go.
Yep. Hey, I lost my spot a few times in that talk. It just made me more real, right?
There you go. Yeah. Okay, so first question is from no name. Oh yeah, Jennifer from Denver. I was just in Denver. I got stuck in the States, Justin. I washed my passport 2 days ago. I was really nervous because I wasn't sure I was going to get home after this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to walk across the border. It took me 2 days to get back to Canada. Yeah.
I wish you were vlogging, Rob. That would have been fun.
Trains, planes, and automobiles.
Hey, Rob, that's how you turn a problem to solution. I mean, a two-day hike across America to get back to your country would totally be a viral video, buddy. Get paid for getting held back. Yeah. Okay, first question is, hey, Justin, how do you deal with pest pressure? We have an urban farm, the grasshoppers. I know you're going to love this question because I know exactly. I think I know where you're going to go with it. Really? We have an urban farm. The grasshoppers and Japanese beetles decimate our crops. The more our food forest grows, the more the grasshoppers thrive. We catch them both and feed them to our chickens, but it's a lot of work. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to tell me what you thought I was going to say after that. But I would say gardening and homesteading and permaculture, it's a lot of hard work. It's just a lot of hard work. You're already doing. Before I heard the ending, I would have said feed it to your chickens. You know, the Bill Mollison classic. You don't have a Japanese beetle and a grasshopper problem. You have a chicken deficit problem. So that means feed it to the chickens. Also, you could eat the grasshoppers. So, that might be, my first permaculturalist taught me, that squirrel problem was you just start hunting and eating the squirrels. And maybe that's not what you wanted to hear, but maybe we're getting out of our minds as at least brainstorming. How can I, deal with this? And here's another thing. I don't know if it's decimating. Maybe you said that. If it's not decimating, share. Like, who cares if some of if the bugs get some of it? Just like if you're gardening with children, plant 25% more you need and just share a little bit. This doesn't cost you that much more to do that. Rob, what did you think I was going to say?
Well, I mean, I thought you were going to go to rotating chickens and kind of breaking pest cycles and stuff like that.
There you go. Okay. See, we're in a brainstorming here. Okay.
Totally. Yeah, we planted Napa cabbage this year because it's just horrible with the white butterfly. Just as an experiment, as like an attractant.
Oh,
and
okay.
And ended up being our best cabbage crop ever. It was crazy. So running experiments is so interesting.
I'm so glad you brought up cabbage. Thank you. If people want the real practical answer, it's bug nets. I mean, we cannot grow cabbage in North Carolina without bugs getting in. And for the longest time, we just grow enough cabbage and we just peel 20 layers off, and then we have our cabbage. But bug net, seriously, is going to go so far. We did bug net, and you put it on right away before there are bugs and before they've laid into the soil and all this stuff. It would keep all that you mentioned out. Bug net.
Yeah.
And totally natural. You're not spraying. So thank you. For mentioning that. See how this, like, just brainstorm, just ask somebody, and just Rob bringing that up, put it up in a forum or something like that in the future. Ask somebody that doesn't know a thing. And it might trigger something. Like, you didn't say bug net, you just said cabbages, and it triggered something.
Totally. Yeah. Cool. What's the next question? Here's from Sage. What's this cross section of permaculture and intentional communities? How can people network and build permaculture as a group?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we've done some community in the past. We've had other people living on the farm. We've had interns. We have other things. I think it kind of goes back to somebody. Well, one, you might not be able to find that. You might have to create that, and you're going to have to start with creating with what you have, and you may not have one other person. So you're starting, and it might start online, and there's no harm in that. You start documenting your heart and what you're doing, and where you want to go, and you start documenting that. And a conversation develops online. And just like how Rob and I were bouncing back and forth with that question earlier, things develop in the past. Don't wait for this utopian thing. Start now with zero community. Start with your family, or if you're just a single person, joining the community garden, or just going for it and documenting it in some way, and develop an online community that could hopefully, it feels like in your heart, would hopefully develop into a real physical community one day.
Lawton left me with 2 bits of advice. I bet you he said the same things to you. And he said, number 1, be doggedly persistent. And I didn't really appreciate that until the last few years, maybe the last 6 years. It comes up all the time in my head. And then he said, you'll know you're doing the right thing when the resources start pooling. And I hated that advice at first, because it was like, that's just so, it's like vapor. It's like, how do I do anything? That's just not going to feed me. That's not going to sell consultancies. And it's just crazy how true that is. And so you kind of just have to go out and do a bunch of things. You don't really know which one's going to stick. And eventually one of them will, and it'll take you off in that direction, and it'll build from there. It's interesting how that all kind of, it feels like the last 15 years of my life has been just following golden threads.
You just have to start with a plan, and then and you may work on that plan. Jeff would say it's a lot easier to make a mistake on paper. So start on that plan, and you might realize from the plan, no, I don't want to do this. This is not what I thought it would be. And you've saved yourself so much trouble. But then you have this plan, then you go out and do it. And then you might realize in the field or your action, I don't want to do that. And you may learn from it, but it also might peak what you are really destined to do. So even with zero, you just got to get started.
Yeah, totally. Jen asks, what are the top 3 parts of a regular daily routine that you love?
I would say I look forward to the Epsom salt bath at night with my wife every single night. And we have this, we collect, well, it will be, but we have this big 100-gallon scalding tank that we use for scalding our pigs and cooling off our chickens at butchering. But all the rest of the year, we fill that up with water. We light a fire underneath it. We warm that up, and it goes downhill to a tub, an outdoor tub that both my wife and I can get in, and we take that Epsom salt bath. You like that? My sound man, he likes that. He's like, bravo. And so then, so like what would get me up in the morning for simple things during the day, I would look forward to that Epsom salt bath. And after that, I usually do non-related work reading. So right now I'm reading a book called The Elephant Whisperer, about an elephant conservatory and this guy taking in wild elephants. That's so much fun. So I like reading anything unrelated, unlearning, none of that. Just something fictional. And then the other one would be tea time. So after chores, just taking a moment and drinking a hot tea and then getting with the projects or the office hours for the day. I also like looking forward to the blog. I have an editor, and I really enjoy seeing the finished work of what I did and really enjoy seeing that finished product. When you become a creator like that, a content creator, and you have, guys, another reason for content creating, when you've put out this beautiful thing in the world that didn't exist and you put it out into the world, guys, that's what completes your joy. When you're watching a funny movie or there's a joke, you look to somebody else and you laugh together. When you find something good, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to share it as fast as you can. So those things. Sorry, that was 4.
All right, there's probably more than that. Christy asks, how long have you used permaculture in your farm, and what's the greatest difference from before you used these principles and ethics?
Yay, it's overwhelm. Because I was going, I would think I've been using permaculture on my farm for about 7 or 8 years, and I'd been, that's not fair, basically based on what I'm saying, because if I've been going at this for 15 years, the first book I read was Joel Salatin's Salad Bar Beef. So I was moving cows every day, which I would certainly argue is permaculture. But having the cow over here and the chicken there. So yeah, that would be the biggest thing that permaculture did, is it taught me to make the connections. And even now it's teaching me, because a lot of people will tell you, oh, you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. Hey, maybe that's something we need to be proud of. And maybe that's something that can be okay. And maybe I'll recant that in a couple of years. And I see the wisdom in that saying, but I also see the wisdom in diversity. Because if my 2 sheep died, I also have pigs, fresh cow's milk, beef coming in, vegetables, turkeys, meat chickens, egg layers. We're okay. It's not a disaster that 2 of the sheep died. It just means we're going to have less lamb next year and more pork and chicken and beef.
Yeah, totally.
So making connections.
Making connections. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the universal theme in when we talk about design, and you hit that really well in this talk. Joan asks, you mentioned setting your vision. When you're feeling burnt out and the daily grind on the homestead weighing you down, how do you keep an eye on the prize?
Yeah, that's so good. It's so good. I guess I would win the Nobel Prize if I could answer that one. Let's brainstorm that one, Robin. Rob. So how do I keep the eye on the prize? So right now, I'm going through a little bit of a darker season, you know, more of a gloomy season. You know, we're remodeling our house, so we're in another house, and it's a downgrade. It's dark over there, like it's literally dark. Here's how. The answer to that is the homesteads, the animals, and having the animals. A garden is one thing, you know, garden doesn't do this for you because you can abandon the garden for a little bit. An animal has to eat and drink every single day. Kids too. So it doesn't matter how bad I feel. I have to do it. It just doesn't matter. Don't wait on and this would be a good advice, is don't wait on the emotion. I learned this from Shay Carl, a vlogger. He actually says in his book, emotion follows motion. So you just have to do it. And having the animals gives you no option. And having the children gives you no option. So if you have children, you might as well get some animals because you're already committed to the daily grind with the kids. You're already strapped down. Rob, you're laughing because that's true, isn't it? That, you know, Rebekah and I never had like a cat or a dog until we had children. We're like, okay, might as well get that now.
Yeah, totally.
Now that we're strapped down.
Yeah. Those are good answers. Topeka asks, what's the best way to start saving for land? How do you know you've chosen the right place? And also she's saying thanks so much for this great presentation. It was really impactful for her.
Yeah. So land is a conundrum, isn't it? And it's getting harder and harder. It's not getting any easier. It's not impossible. We might have an exercise and say, well, how do I afford land? Well, first of all, maximize what you have now. If you're not maximizing your windowsill in your apartment, even if it's a north-facing window, which would be the opposite side that you would want to grow on, you're not going to do it. You're not going to manage 5 acres. So if you're not maximizing your 1/4 yard, you're not going to maximize your, my landlord doesn't let me grow in the yard. Get a green stock, which is like a vertical tower garden, and grow 36 plants in 2 square feet, and ain't nobody going to complain about that. No HOA, no landlord. It's mobile. There's community gardens. There's things like that. So, well, ask yourself first, like my permaculture teacher first asked me, you know, you could grow guinea pigs. So ask yourself first, do I need land? Do I even need land? I know that's a hard question because we want it and we have a deep desire for it, but let's dare to say, do I need it? Because that already racks in my mind. Oh, well, Aunt Susie knows Johnny that there's a field there, isn't it? And they're not doing a thing with it. You know, could I just maybe use some of that? Maybe I need to get some practice on some land I don't own for 5 years. Maybe I've maxed out my yard. Now maybe I think I want to raise grass-fed beef. Maybe I should just try it on 2 acres leased. Maybe I'm leasing leasing land is incredibly cheap compared to buying land. It's like ridiculously cheap. It's unbalanced. It's unskewed. There's arrangements where it's hard to get a loan in the US over 10 acres or 20 acres. I forget where that is. So if you want more than that, it's impossible to get a loan. But I've seen people get a loan on the house and the 10 acres and then owner finance the rest of it. So sometimes there's this situation where you don't have to borrow from the bank. You're just owner financing. When you say, how do I save for the land? If you make $50,000 a year, the maximum amount you could live like a homeless person and not spend a dime, the maximum amount you could save is $50,000. So dare to ask yourself, not how much I can save. That only take you so far, and it's a healthy exercise, but there's another step. How much can I earn? So what could I do to earn more? Because it turns out it's unlimited. There's no ceiling on how much you can earn.
Yeah, it's interesting. You really do have to get outside the box. And like we're sitting on 160 acres now, which I never would have dreamed of owning. And I think I would have been just as happy on an acre in a small town. Like you can still buy houses in our neck of the woods for 50 grand on an acre. if you're willing to live in a more rural area. And Starlink has opened up so many possibilities.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. Like when you put your feet down somewhere, you start making a bit of noise. That's one of the other advantages of being a content creator, is people will start gravitating towards you.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, you've got a community forming around you that you could have never imagined.
I mean, Rob, I went across America in 2018. My audience
I
was a
remember that.
fraction of the size, and we put out applications out for people to host us. We had 400 people vying for us to come and stay with them. So
Yeah,
I
I
would
remember
venture
that
to
trip.
guess, if I put the word out there now, say this land got stripped from me, is there any kind of land, trade arrangement? There's trade arrangements. There's going in on it with somebody else. There's the people we ended up selling our bus to that we went on that Great American Farm Tour with. They end up using our bus because they're getting older, but they have land. And so now the bus hosts young people who come in and want to farm and don't have the land. So there's all kinds of arrangements.
Yeah, when you look at the demographics, like one trend we're starting to see is people that are a bit older that do have land and resources. They may not have the energy to run the land. One of my clients is putting a second house on their property, and one of my students is going to move in there, and then there's going to be a long-term arrangement to buy the land out over time. And so she's acting as the bank, and there's a needs and yields thing going on there. So again, like, we have to look at the 8 forms of capital, and it's not your balance sheet's not just about the amount of money you have in the bank. It's the relationships, it's the knowledge. There's so many different ways to account for value in your life, and society really doesn't emphasize those other kind of nuanced values because they don't encourage that creative thinking.
Yeah. I mean, Elliot Coleman, the goat of gardening himself, is retiring. And so I don't know if it's a selling arrangement or you come and work arrangement, but it's some sort of arrangement where you can go work there for a few years with a potential to own or to buy it in the end. So it's like, there's all kinds of opportunities out there.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as animals, where's the best place to start that gives as much as it takes in affording all of these animals? It's not really written very well.
Man,
maybe you got the essence of that there.
I mean, if I need to name one animal, I'll name it. But first I'll say, grow what's closest to your heart. So look at your grocery receipt, look at your food bill. What are you spending your money on? That's probably the animal you should start on. But not necessarily. I mean, what if you're spending all your money on beef and you don't have 2 acres? You probably need 2 acres to get a couple. You need 2 acres to get a couple of beef cows in the spring, raise them to the fall, and harvest them. If beef's it, then you have 2 acres, then let's go. Or you want to lease 2 acres or whatever, let's go. But if I had to give you one answer without knowing anything, I'm going to give you the chainsaw of the livestock world, meaning the most high efficiency for what it is. And that would be the Cornish cross meat chicken. I call it the sea monster. C for Cornish cross and monster for the rate it grows. In 2 months, if you just raised 100, let's just raise 50. And they made it all the way in just 2 months, in just 8 weeks, Rob. This person is going to have 4 to 6 pounds of meat in your freezer per bird. So that's if they did 100, that's 400 to 600. So if they did half that, that's 200 to 300. You're not supposed to do math in public. 200 to 300 pounds of meat in your freezer in 2 months.
Yeah,
it was only a 2-month commitment, and 3 of that is in a brooder. So it's only 5 weeks outside. Yes, you're importing grain, but sure, you're putting them out on grass. If you're using my method, you're moving them every day, and they're regenerating the land. Put them on the worst spot in your yard, put them on the worst spot in your pasture, and it's going to be better. And if you did 50, that's a chicken a week for a year.
Yep.
Start there.
Yeah, totally.
All day long.
I just downloaded your plans not that long ago, your chickshaw plans.
Yay.
And we just made an aluminum version of it. It's amazing.
Oh,
so
sweet.
light.
Now I hope you got the new version of the plans, the Homestead Builds version. I hope so.
Yeah. And I modified them a bit too, but they're awesome. Like I can't recommend them enough.
I love it when people modify them. I've seen them with automatic doors. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Especially if you're having to put chickens up or out at night. Auto doors, and You could put dually wheels on the thing and carry even more chickens in there. People have done all kinds of crazy things.
Totally. Yeah, that was a great invention.
Thank you.
You don't just get the 600 pounds though, you get 1,200 pounds of manure.
Exactly.
It's like double the benefit there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the same person that asked that question just sent their love regarding the Lyme disease. It's a tough challenge.
Thanks for the love.
Another person just wrote, I have a deep respect for you, Justin. Thanks for sharing today, being so vulnerable with us.
Oh, thank you.
Best advice for someone / a family doing this for their health, i.e. GAPS diet. We're finding it really challenging to produce all we need on such a high consumption diet.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the good news about the GAPS diet, we did that. It was one of our redeeming pivotal points in healing. So stick with it. It's hard as hell, but worth it if you can do it. Enlist some help if you can on some of it. The good thing about the GAPS diet is that is stuff you can grow. Now, also know, and I want you to relax in not having to have everything in that soup. For those that don't know, with the GAPS diet, when you first start out, it's basically boiled meat and vegetables in a soup for a couple of weeks. And then it's a gut healing diet. And then you expand from there. So it's heavy meat and vegetables throughout it, which is things that you can grow on the farm, which is beautiful. Like if you're wanting to, if your grocery bill is Oreos and mac and cheese, that's going to be hard to grow on the farm. But if your grocery bill is the GAPS diet, that's good news. But I would relax in not being able to do it all. And I want to tell you, it's okay that you can't do it all. We're just going to do a little bit more every day. I like to call it the 1% rule. Just make 1% change every day, whether you feel like it or not. Some days you make 10% change. Sometimes you make 1%. Sometimes you make 0.5%. Other days you get injured and you really made 0%. But 1% change in 72 days, you've doubled because you had the rule of compounding. So you can't and maybe shouldn't do it all, because at some point it's really good to count on the community and have trade. And maybe it's out of the box thinking. Maybe it's, hey, I'm just going to grow the meat chickens like Justin said, because we have a 1/2 acre. How many chickens could I grow on that? Oh my gosh, that's a lot of chickens, and nobody's selling chickens at the farmer's market. I'll just sell chickens and then buy the vegetables or trade for them at the farmer's market. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, GAPS diet is a pretty interesting approach. We've played with that one as well. Another question here. What do you suggest to people living in fear because of climate change? Personally, I believe the earth is in charge of itself, not us, and will be okay just like us.
Yeah. That would go back to that realm of influence versus fear as concern. That is a concern. It's a lot to try to deal with that. It can be seemingly overwhelming and over our heads. So we just focus on what we can do. We're not going to convince anybody. We're not going to change anybody's mind through some debate. You're going to have a better chance changing somebody's mind by living the change, being the example, focusing on what you can, communing with the earthworms, get down and dirty, get so busy you can't even think about it, and then realize this is the change that I can do. And this is making a positive benefit towards that. And listen, and what if somebody were, people say, well, what are you doing, Justin, to prepare for a big apocalypse or something? They want me to hoard seeds or whatever and have this stash. And that hadn't been the focus. The focus has been, well, I've got a rooster. I've got a ram, which is a male sheep. I've got a boar, which is a male pig. I've got a bull, which is a male bull, and I have the female counterparts to all that. So we're going to have fresh food on hoof continually because of that. So in a way, we are prepared, but we're preparing in this sense of abundance. We're running towards a hope. Hey, I just want to feed my kids healthy food off the land. But if some catastrophe were to happen, the we're going to be just fine. So I would encourage people to focus on positive things, that if things don't turn out as you fear, which they say only 2% of the things you fear actually come true. So if you're running towards that positive, you're actually inadvertently preparing yourself for that negative. And if the negative doesn't happen, you're still better off than you were.
So we're going to wrap up here pretty quick. I got a couple more questions, but I didn't hear you talk about your new TV show, and I want to just give you an opportunity to tell us about what that looks like and where people can find out more about it.
Yeah, I had this idea for a new TV show for our streaming platform member area, Abundance Plus, that we called it Elevated. Let's take 4 local homesteaders and let's go in and let's tell their stories. Let's talk about how they've elevated themselves from where they were. And many of you are here for that reason. You're wanting to elevate yourself. You're getting out of this pit. You've realized there's something wrong. You don't belong, even if it's the norm that you want to go up the stream, right? Against the current. And that's what these people are doing. And we just wanted to go in then and elevate their game. I'm fortunate enough and want to share the abundance I've gotten over the years, a track loader and a mini excavator, and you can do a lot of interesting and powerful earthworks with that. And these people would no way be able to rent those or buy them themselves. So we go in 2 days and surprise these people with just a complete homestead makeover. And these aren't like desperate people. This isn't homestead rescue. These are just like normal people, just like the people watching here, just doing and having these dreams and aspirations, and could just use a little boost. And we come in, surprise them, and we give them this boost. And we documented this from, an initial tour in the spring, and then the work day, and then kind of following out throughout the year, and then finally go visit them there in the late summer. And so you get to see how some other people, just like the viewers here, are running their homes, that you gain ideas from it. So it's kind of like edutainment. It's kind of like my vlog. You're learning something, but you're also being entertained. And you see, sometimes we're going in and they have a vision and we're just supporting it. But other times maybe they're saying, hey, Justin, here's this working man, he works construction. He wants to rotationally graze. How do I do it when I am very limited on my time? I have 6 kids and working full time. Okay. Very easy, Seth. Let's just do 6 big paddocks and every week. And so you'll have a 60-day rotation and you're just moving them once a week. That's better than just continual grazing. That's more than 6 times better than that. And so sometimes you'll get to see me consult in real time and see the progress those people have made over the season. And other times you'll just be entertained and inspired by the change.
Amazing. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, we put your website up into the chat there. It's Abundance. Do you want to just say it just for the
It would
folks?
be abundanceplus.com.
Cool.
Abundanceplus.com, and it has an accompanying app. You sign up for it at abundanceplus.com, and then you can go download the app or watch it on Roku or Apple TV or Fire Stick. So you can, and that's not the only show in there. There's many shows, there's many instructional videos, master classes, and then there's a vibrant community.
Great. Amazing. Hey, Justin, I love watching your videos, especially the Great American Farm Tour bus retrofit journey across the US. Are you planning on doing another one?
Yes. In 5 years, I hope to have the 10-year yeehaw reunion, because, we've had another kid since then and he didn't get to go. Now, we are not going to go to all 50 states. If this happens, now this is just me talking and brain fart. Who knows? Don't hold me to this. But I hope to, in 5 years, we'll probably zigzag a little bit across some of the highlights and then come back. We will not hit all 50 states. You can mark my words on that one. And then, I kind of have this, wouldn't that be cool if I miss Maple. Maple was the bus we built and we had to sell her to pay some bills. And it's kind of like, she's such a historic piece. Is anybody going to appreciate her like I would? And I told you the story of her earlier and I feel like redeemed. I feel like she's used it well, but hey, maybe we can get her back. Maybe that's the fun story that we maybe we're driving a bus back. Maybe we're driving Maple back home.
You guys were gonna make it up our way, I think, and didn't end up working out. So
Yeah, I am so sorry. We ended up going into Canada 2 or 3 times. JM though, he was really close to New York border.
Yeah.
So that was easy. And then you were gonna add 200 miles, and we started to learn, wait a minute, we only go, we couldn't stand, 300 miles a day was a big day for us. So we ended up biting off. It was too much.
Yeah, totally.
What did we tell you? What was the reason? I forget.
I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
It was something along that lines. I hate that we stood you up.
Oh,
we
it's
ended
all
up
good.
seeing Curtis. We ended up getting to see Curtis was far too. I think we were going to hit you and then go Curtis. We went to Curtis from Curtis Stone, for those that don't know what I'm saying here. But we end up getting sick as dogs on the way there. So we probably got sick in Washington State, and then we got so sick we got the flu, and it was probably the worst flu I ever got. We couldn't even do anything. Curtis had planned to take us to different sites and hikes and stuff like that, and we couldn't do any of it. I did manage to document his urban farm at the time there, but that was about it.
Yeah, no, Canada's a huge place, just like the States, but we're a bit more.
It's so big.
Yeah, it's big.
You're so rural.
Totally.
You love it up there? Are you gonna be buried there? You committed?
You know what? I'm open to whatever comes my way. I've got some big aspirations. My big dream is I want to regenerate a big part of the Baja. I don't know why I'm drawn to that place, but spent a bit of time there, and it's gorgeous. I don't know if you've probably seen Neil Spackman's project in Saudi. That was such an inspiring project, like just what he turned around in 5 years there. I think the world needs to see more of those types of demonstrations. So yeah,
good for you.
Yeah. Another question here, and then we're gonna, if you haven't signed up for the contest, folks, get your sign up there, and then we're gonna do some closing thoughts with Justin and let him get back to his day, and let you guys get back to your day too. So just a couple more questions here, Justin. So how do you motivate yourself every day to do the hard work on your homestead?
Yeah, I would say it goes back to the have to. I've committed to something that you can't really let go. In that case, the animals. You can't. You got to see through it. That would be the trick. You got to commit to another living creature that you can't give up on until the end, and then it gives you the freedom to say, "Are we going to do it again? What next? How might we improve it?" And that keeps you going. New projects. We're putting in that new access road on our. We had a 35-degree slope, and we put this new, just very slight swell, and it's not even on contour. It's 2.5 degrees off contour, so water can just slowly kind of go away. But it also is going to serve as our road, and it won't collect a big puddle in a rain event. But that's exciting because now I'm riding on this road, and I'm seeing the farm from this different perspective. So 1, make a commitment, and 2, continue to push a little bit every day and explore some new things that keep it exciting. And if you farm in this regenerative way, by the time we're sick of moving these animals around every single day, by the time it's time to put them in the pole barn on deep bedding over winter, we're relieved and happy that that's come. And by the time we're sick of milking all in one spot in that deep bedding over the winter, it's time to start moving them again. So adjust the way you're doing things to make it more exciting, because it has to be about the process. I've learned the result it's fleeting. And you sit down to that Thanksgiving meal or some big meal that you've prepared. It's taking you hours to prepare it, and you consume it in 15 minutes. Well, if you made the Thanksgiving meal, which is like turkey, mashed potatoes, and these are things you can grow on the farm, collard greens, and you made that meal, it took 4 days or sometimes 2 days to make all this, the cornbread, and everybody consumed it in 15 minutes. Well, guess what? If you grew that, it took you 16 weeks to grow the turkey. It grew you 120 days to grow the potatoes. You gotta learn to love the process. And if you don't love the process, put in your milking, do like I used to do and put in the audiobook. I listened to Zig Ziglar's Developing the Quality to Success, a 6-hour audio presentation 16 times. And milking wasn't so bad. And then my kids grew up, and I'm communing with them now, so I don't need an audio book. But when I do dishes, I got to listen to Joe Rogan or something that doesn't take a whole lot of thought and follow a long process. You kind of in and out of it. So those dishes aren't so miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay sometimes to admit it gets boring and difficult and miserable, and let's find a different way to enjoy the process. I think it was Grant Schultz, was that his name? He talked about at one of the Permaculture Voices back in the day, you ask yourself, how can I make this more fun? And so in the instance, we're moving a milk sled every day in the field. Well, that's fun with a side by side. I mean, we were able to get a side by side and get that, but we also have a bull that's an American milking Devon, so he could actually be used as an ox. So if I needed to mix it up that bad, I could train him to pull the milk sled every day, and that would just add an element of interesting and fun to the place.
Amazing.
Just some, yeah.
Before we announce the winner, Justin, do you want to leave us with any closing thoughts?
No, man, I think you guys nailed it. You guys had really good questions. I mean, I nailed it. We're talking about the 1% rule. We talked about the can mentality. Man, you guys got all the golden nuggets. Thank you. This has been good. Refreshing.
I think the golden nuggets are all yours. We just teased it out.
Yeah, you mined it out, my friend.
Amazing. It was great to connect again. It's been too long.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And you too.
Folks, it's been a great show. If you have any other closing remarks for Justin, you can put them up into the comments there. And like I said, our PDC starting here in not very long, a couple months away, November. If you're looking to kickstart your life, change your perspective on the world, grow nutrient-dense food, get a house that shelters you in a way that's not going to rob from you. Most of our houses just take all the time. Connect with a community. People always come for the information, but they always resoundingly say they came for the community, or they left with a community that they didn't know they were going to leave with. I've had students saying that they finally have found themselves and they've found their community and they don't feel like weirdos anymore. And so if you're interested in kicking that off, consider heading over to our website and taking our PDC. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. You're going to be absolutely blown away by how you look at the world once you get through there. And put some questions up in here for other folks. I know there's people from our past PDCs that are watching this today, and reach out to them and hear it from them, not just from us. So the winner of today's contest gets a free spot in the PDC. It is Robin Glover from Alberta.
Oh.
So looking forward to having you in the program. And make sure you subscribe to Justin's channel and the YouTube channel if you haven't seen his work. It's there's so much information on there, so definitely a great place to get up to speed on everything homestead and permaculture. And we'll see you guys in one of the next talks. We've got Carmen or Amy. What are our next conversations? Just leave people with that. I think they're in here.
I think it was
We've got
12th and the 25th, Rob, I believe. Is that
yeah.
correct?
So, yep, you're right. Actually, I just got it up here. So I'll just throw up the slide deck here, and folks can take a peek. On the 25th of October, we've got Finian. So you can mark this down on your calendar. It's going to be 2 seconds here to get the slide deck up. So Finian from, have you seen that show, Justin? Have you seen Finian's new documentary on?
I haven't. What's the name of it?
Common Ground. It's part 2 of Kiss the Ground.
Okay, I saw Kiss the Ground. I haven't seen Common Ground.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be pretty good. No, that's not sharing the right screen there. Just give me a second. Yeah, the trailer is really good. I think it's actually it's out right now. So Finian's going to talk a little bit about his latest documentary. So pay attention to that. And then after him, we've got Dan Housley. And Dan's been working on projects all over planet Earth. He's got a team of people through United Designers. So that's guaranteed to be a really inspiring talk. Actually, it looks like Dan's next. and Finian's last. So the slides are backwards, but October 12th, 2023, 11 to 2, same time as this. Then Finian is after that on October 25th, 5 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And they're going to be incredible conversations. So thanks again, Justin. Thanks everybody out there.
Yes.
We'll see you guys very soon.
We'll see you.